It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here, folks, welcome. Happy Monday. Thanks so much for being with us. We do appreciate it. This is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building the Liberty Machine, and joining us now, I want to welcome to the program, we have Mr. Brandon Cooper, who is with us, and he is a pharmacist, and you're actually the former head of the Arkansas Pharmacy Association.
Right, I'm a past president.
Past president.
The APA, yeah.
Okay, so I really appreciate you coming on the program because, first of all, I understand on Friday you were making the rounds here at some other stations.
I was, yeah. I was on all the local stations here, explaining the situation. And one point that they all brought up, and this happens anytime you mention this situation about the PBMs, their first question is, well, shouldn't that be illegal? I'm like, exactly. That's exactly right.
Well, so let's start at the beginning. I kind of did a little, did an article or read somebody's article about this. But you as a pharmacist, I mean, it's PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers. They are a middleman that is essentially, in some cases, we have these non-negotiable contracts. Talk about this and how it's crippling small town or small pharmacies.
It's just a classic example of a middleman, just a straight middleman in the process. And they stand between you and your medications that your doctor prescribes. That's one thing I think that's lost in all this is that they are the ones that dictate what medicine that you can even have filled. And so not only that, they dictate what we're reimbursed. They directly reimburse us, and then they turn around and bill whoever's paying for the prescription, whether it be the government, a local employer, whoever's providing that health benefit, then they turn around and bill them. But the thing is, there's no transparency in this situation whatsoever. These companies are completely unregulated. And so we've passed laws here in the state of Arkansas to deal with this, to try to hold them accountable for what they do. And as you can see, when you have these huge corporations like this, they basically think they're above the law.
So how much of this, I mean, one of the articles talked about, a lot of this is taxpayer money. I mean, this is all kind of, and you have Blue Cross Blue Shield is involved. They're getting, very rich off this. You have CVS involved. Can you talk about that relationship? We have a big pharmacy, like a big national pharmacy, CVS, and they're doing well on this. They're not having this problem.
Exactly, and that's one thing, that you want to bring up here is a lot of these pharmacy benefit managers, align themselves with certain pharmacies. Well, in the case of CVS Caremark, you have a pharmacy benefit manager which controls how much the competition gets paid. So they and CVS are actually one and the same, even though, supposedly, according to the Federal Trade Commission, there's supposed to be a firewall in place. Well, I think you alluded to that a little bit earlier. Where's that firewall when you're able to pay the competitor one price and then turn around and bill a much more exorbitant amount for your own pharmacy?
Yeah, so is that number accurate? I've heard somebody tell me that there are cases where you have one prescription that gets filled for $12 at a local pharmacy, but you go to CVS or gets reimbursed $12. You go to CVS and they're getting reimbursed $1,400. Is that accurate?
There's all kinds of examples of that going on, Paul. We've got our own examples here in town, and that's one thing I want to mention. Blue Cross, they're playing along with this scheme as well because, if you look at some of the things we've seen, when did CVS start moving into the state of Arkansas? Well, it was immediately after CVS Caremark procured that Blue Cross contract. So they used a different pharmacy benefit manager before that. So instantly when they changed to CVS Caremark, suddenly you noticed all these CVS stores stopped popping up. And here in Jonesboro, where I practice, we've seen direct examples of that. Our own store policy is a Blue Cross policy. Well, we can fill an employee's prescription at our pharmacy for one amount, which one example we've got, the patient paid a $10 copay. They turn around and paid us an extra 57 cents. Well, that medicine costs $12. So we've already lost, a dollar in that situation. Same patient filled it at CVS across town. Guess how much they paid themselves at CVS for that same? We got paid $11 almost total.
Yeah. How much? I don't know.
$100.
Okay. Wow.
So I mean, you can see this. This is a basic example of just collusion. Just government run amok because this all started. We started paying more. I mean, this has been going on for years, but we started paying more attention this year when the largest insurer in the state, Blue Cross, runs one of the Arkansas Works plans. Well, that's using your taxpayer dollars. So if they're willing to pay us one thing and turn around and bill the state through Blue Cross another amount, then that's
Now this is something serious.
exactly.
So you're
That's a serious
okay.
issue.
So because Arkansas Works is paying for premiums for the Medicaid expansion, they're paying for Blue Cross policies. I see what you're saying. So now we have the taxpayer money being used to really collude with the whole process to put you guys out of business.
Right.
And that's what a lot of these pharmacies are facing. I have even heard, and we're talking with Brandon Cooper, he's the former president of the Arkansas Pharmacy Association. I've even heard that some of these pharmacies are getting letters from the CVS, and CVS is offering to buy them out, and it's like they want to corner the market, and then they'll be able to do whatever they want with their prices.
Exactly, and we're the first step in that onslaught of taking over this state and filling all the prescriptions for everyone in the state through Blue Cross. They think we're easy pickings because they can pick on the small independent pharmacies, and a lot of them are in these smaller towns. I mean, that's the only healthcare professional that's available, for miles and miles in a lot of these smaller towns. And instantly, after they cut this reimbursement rate at the beginning of the year, then we started kind of pushing back on that a little bit. Well, then Blue Cross just decided, well, we'll allow them to just apply it to all commercial plans. So now it's not just tax dollars. They're playing these same schemes with a lot of local employers in the state of Arkansas.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, then they start faxing these letters that you'll come in the morning to the pharmacy, and then there'll be a fax on the fax machine, and it says, "Are you interested in selling your pharmacy?" And it comes straight from CVS. So
Well,
they're devaluing their competitors,
Yeah,
so they can
exactly.
rush in and pay bottom dollar. And
Well,
then take over.
they pay bottom dollar, and if they succeed in cornering the market, I would imagine you're going to see pharmacy wages take a dive in terms of what it takes, to hire a pharmacist.
And that's already happened, Paul. That's why time is of the essence here. That's why we're pushing on the state legislature to do something, because even in our own pharmacy, we're already we're forced with laying off employees, or like we're going to try to do, cut back on hours. And those are jobs. That's small businesses.
Yeah.
That's the backbone of our democracy here in America, are these small mom and pop businesses. And now you've got these big corporations coming in and, trying to push around the legislature and get their way.
Okay, so there's a bill out. There's potential fixes out there, right? What do you know about the potential fixes? Because they're talking about special sessions, things like that. I did a whole segment this morning on how these letters from Speaker Gillum and Jonathan Dismang are actually taking power away from the legislature. They're trying to perform some choice architecture. But see that Conduit for Action article, folks, if you want. It's up right now about the end of our representative democracy. It's really important. But I guess from a pharmacist standpoint, like you know the problem. Is the governor right now supporting a fix that is acceptable to you?
No.
Okay, he's
No.
not.
And I mean, he's basically leaving up to the legislature. Well, like you said, they're putting these rules in place, to say, well, you've got to have 2/3 majority to even hear something.
Yeah.
Well, there's already bills in place. Senator Ron Caldwell
Okay, Senator Caldwell has a bill.
has
right.
a bill, and then there's an equal one in the House. To try to bring this up before the legislature.
I'm told that ASA doesn't support Caldwell's bill. That's what I'm told.
Well, and that's because think about this, though, Paul. I mean, you've got the three people actually that are standing in the way of this legislation, which deals with taxpayer dollars. Number one, number two, we're trying to save small businesses here and jobs. You've got the governor, you've got the president pro tem of the Senate, and you've got Jeremy Gillum. What do all three of those have in common? They all worked to create this Arkansas Works plan. So see, you see here that they're trying to save face here. They don't want to admit that a program that they helped create has gone horribly off the tracks, and we want to correct that.
Wow, that's really well said. There is a lot of that, and from a political standpoint, I'll just say, I mean, I've been following that issue for a long time. They've kind of staked a lot of their political careers on the success of this, and so you're right. There's certainly nobody ever wants to admit they're wrong, but politicians especially, they never want to admit that they've done something that's affected you guys in an
and I mean,
way.
we've given them proof, that if you would have just put these same patients in our traditional Medicaid program, which is very well run, the pharmacists get paid, they negotiate prices, they bring the cost of drugs down, but the main thing that they do is they use cost-effective medications. First of all, they look at what's effective. A lot of these PBMs, what do they base their drugs that they put on their formulary? Well, they're playing the other side of the equation. Not only are they paying us less, they're making pharma compete against each other and the big drug companies, because then they have to pay back rebates to even get their drugs on the plans. So you've turned this Arkansas Works program over to these people who simply want to keep, driving up the prices because they get bigger rebates back.
Yeah, and the taxpayers are a stable,
And we're footing the bill.
Yeah, we're a stable revenue source.
Exactly.
So, do you know of any pharmacies that turn prescriptions away because they lose money?
We do. We've done it ourselves in our own pharmacy. And, we had a hearing on this. Senator Ron Caldwell also chairs a committee on the Health Insurance Exchange and the Oversight Committee. And we had a hearing a few weeks back. You mentioned that earlier, and I mean, the room was packed. They said it was the largest crowd they ever had there because all the pharmacists were down there, trying to bring light on this situation. And, part of that committee hearing that they had, was just to try to get to the root cause of this issue. And there were, a lot of eyebrows were raised there, because one thing is Arkansas Blue Cross, if you think about it, they are in direct collusion with CVS Caremark because they are beholden to them to process their prescriptions. Well, part of this, the Arkansas Works plans, that goes back to the Affordable Care Act. And through that, there's a law in place that says that you have to spend a certain amount of premium dollars on direct medical care. Well, CVS Caremark made a deal with Blue Cross, in my opinion, which I think you'll see, the facts laid out in front of you there to support this. But they actually want the cost of those medications to be higher, because that way that shows that they're spending more of that money and they don't have to pay that back as a rebate to the taxpayers. So if they're charging us, or if they're paying us one thing and then turn around and billing Blue Cross another, then they've said, well, we won't charge you a fee to process these prescriptions, because you can't count that against that loss ratio. Okay, is what this is called.
So that sounds kind of, when we had our previous conversation, I guess we talked on Friday, but to set this interview up, you said that if I were to buy something from you for $200 and I give you $200, but then I ask you for a receipt that says I gave you $500,
exactly,
and the IRS found out about it, they would throw the book at me. So is that the scenario here?
That's basically what's going on. Yeah.
Wow.
In other words, if I pay you one amount, you write me a receipt for a much larger amount. We make a side deal, saying, well, hey, I can deduct all this off my taxes, at a greater amount, and I'll give you something in exchange for that. They'd throw the book at us.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on here with your taxpayer dollars. And Blue Cross is just as much to blame as anyone in this situation.
That's unbelievable. All right, so we're talking with Brandon Cooper, the former president of the Arkansas Pharmacy Association. So what do we do from here? I mean, you have, like you said, Senator Caldwell has this bill, and am I correct to say that the pharmacists are supportive of what he's trying to do?
We are, because what that bill basically does is it's going to make the PBMs have to license with the state of Arkansas. You think about every healthcare practitioner in the state of Arkansas, they have to license. They have a governing board or body over them, that holds them accountable. Even the insurance companies have to, log on with the insurance commission. They're everybody's licensed, but these PBMs, no oversight whatsoever.
Well, I mean, what's funny about this is, I'm not Mr. Create new boards or licenses. I mean, that's but when you put it like Arkansas Works, okay, you're paying these premiums to the for these insurance policies, and then these insurance, you've got taxpayer money now that's going to participate in this scam. I mean, the whole thing sounds like a scam.
It just reeks of fraud and corruption.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, something needs to be done about it. And so it's interesting that the governor does not support, I'm told, Senator Caldwell's bill, and it'll be interesting to see, what happens there. But if you have to have, if they're thinking of calling a special session, and they've now put out these ridiculous rules saying, but we want your bills submitted with 2/3 signature before they're wanting to essentially have a pre-vote so they can figure out what exactly is going to get passed. It's almost like it is. I mean, Brandon, they don't want legislators to actually legislate and have up or down amendments or up or down votes on amendments and debate and stuff like that, which I mean, and to me, the only reason you would do that is if you're trying to protect the status quo, and in this case, it's the PBMs and CVS.
And that's what I said. They're all trying to save face in this situation because they don't want to admit that something they did has gone horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And that's all we're asking. I'm like you. We're all overregulated. I mean, every medical professional in the state of Arkansas is overly regulated. But then you've got this whole entity of people here, these corporations who come in, from out of state, and they just, they control the pocketbook. They control the money that goes to you, and then they charge how much, and they just can create this spread, and no one is able to look over their shoulders.
Yeah, so we have the status quo, the big business. They're getting rich. They take off the taxpayer. They take that money then, and then they fund lobbyists to make this whole process as convoluted. I mean, if that wasn't happening, you probably wouldn't have had these letters trying to limit what the people's legislative body can do on our name and our behalf. So it's frustrating. So I guess, where do we go from here? What do you think? I mean, do people need to call? What's your thought?
Yeah, we've been calling. The pharmacists have been engaged, ever since the beginning of the year, and for many years we have. We've got laws in place that we have passed, but they simply aren't enforcing those. And part of that is the governor's own fault for not, allowing these practices to be brought to light. And so that's what we're asking here. We're simply asking, the insurance commissioner, the attorney general, someone needs to step up. And I will, speak up for Leslie Rutledge. She has announced that she is investigating CVS Caremark because of these practices, and even the governor has in his hands those very examples that I mentioned to you of them paying one pharmacy a different amount than what we get paid, the smaller pharmacies. And it's just like, okay, enough is enough. Let's have a vote.
Yeah.
Let's bring this thing to the floor. So I urge all of you to call your legislators. I know a lot of the legislators around here, my own legislators, are very supportive of this. There's overwhelming support in the state legislature, but it's these people that control bringing that.
Well, and they're controlling it, but here's the thing. You don't have to have a special session to consider this. Constitutionally, they don't have to play by the speaker's rules. You can have bring up a vote right now in the fiscal session, if you have enough people that are willing to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they're trying to control the outcome and try to control what is even debated. They only want to debate in these parameters, and I think when you do that, you're protecting something. You're protecting the status quo. Brandon Cooper, I appreciate it, sir, for coming on. I guess tomorrow we'll be talking with, a pharmacist friend of yours, out of Russellville. So I'm excited to do that as well, to just bring more to light about what's going on. I wish you the best, and let me know what I can do to help and get the word out.
I appreciate you, Paul. Appreciate you having me on.
All righty. Brandon Cooper, everybody. We got to take a break. Back in just a moment.